and welcome once again to How Do You Keep Well podcast. Today I have some personal stories to share, some scientific insight and a couple of strategies you can try to experiment with as you prepare to do some life upgrades when it comes to your diet and your brain health. It's very commonplace knowledge that as women approach midlife, hormonal shifts and other physiological changes can contribute to cognitive challenges like brain fog, memory lapses, and difficulty concentrating. Definitely adopting a brain-healthy diet during this transitional phase can be a powerful tool in combating these issues and supporting long-term brain health. So today I'm going to be talking about a topic. It's been playing out on my mind for several months and for several reasons, both in my personal life and in my clinical work. And the questions I have is, how can we beat the midlife brain drain with our diet? Is it possible to eat our way into a sharper mind, a sharper focus, and fight brain fog? How can we possibly boost our brain health and cognitive processes before the age decline kicks in? Yeah, welcome. So like I said, the reason I have chosen this topic this time is that I have noticed that more and more women are coming forward to discuss their concerns about brain fog. I have noticed it in my life as a woman in midlife. I have noticed changes to my memory, and I'm not sure, is it related to hormonal changes or is it just lifestyle factors, or maybe it could just be a combination of both, like a double whammy. We shall soon find out. Let's start with my first story for today. So I was recently at a car dealer and the process of selling a car, buying a car, and they were asking me questions about the keys to my car and if I had a spare key. I said, yes, I have a spare key, but I don't know where it is. My heart literally sank because I knew this was going to knock off a few hundreds of pounds off my car estimate. So anyway, they checked my car, gave me back the key, and we all went back into the showroom to discuss and negotiate a bit more. Afterwards, the manager came back to ask me again for my car key. Guess what? I did not know where it was. I literally emptied the bag in front of me. I searched everywhere like a crazy woman. I could not find this key. I was sure they gave me back the key, but I could not find it. After a few minutes of rambling here and there, I found the key in my pocket. And you know what? That episode made me wonder what was going on in my brain. And like every woman out there, the first thing that crosses your mind is, am I getting demented? Am I going crackers? Or am I just simply being absent-minded? Do I have just too much in my brain that I'm not actually paying focus? I'm not paying attention to things happening around me. So you know what? When this event happened, I thought this must be a sign of some sort to go ahead with this podcast to discuss our brain health. So you tell me, it's your turn. What is your own story about a moment when you could not remember something or someone's name? What kind of years came to you afterwards? How embarrassing was it for you? And did it make you doubt yourself and your ability to have an impact at your family or in your workplace or in your projects? Tell me how it felt, because let's be real, these things can become quite troubling for many women. And I know some men go through it, but they go through it at a later age than women. My thoughts are the best way to overcome our fear and uncertainty about dementia is with reliable, hopeful, and practical information so that we can better understand what to do to delay, to cope with, or possibly prevent this dreaded disease. The good news is that you can boost your brain's power of recall. You can keep your brain ready, retentive, and resilient. Obviously, when you look at the statistics for dementia, the numbers are staggering. It is estimated that by the time we reach our mid 60s, which is not too far for so many of us, 1 in every 9 people will be diagnosed with some form of dementia. And by the time we reach our 80s, that number jumps to 1 in 3. But above all, 2 in 3 people diagnosed with dementia are women. So also women are likely to be unpaid carers looking after people with dementia. As they say, numbers don't lie. Now is a good time to start working on your brain health right from your midlife. So I'm going to be looking at brain health from the angle of our lifestyle factors. Of course, if you know me and you've heard me before, I am all about living a soft, gentle life. Not for any reason whatsoever, not because I'm lazy, but I believe that we have resources all around us that can make it easy for us to live a happy, healthy life. My biggest value to life is maintaining health as best as possible with the wisdom God has given us, but also with the help of what science and medicine tells us is possible. So, in a way, using our common sense and science. But also, I really hope to give people that option or to allow people understand that there are options beyond pills that you can use to prevent chronic medical conditions. Yes, common sense may be a secret actually, because we need to reveal these secrets in a systematic way and in an easy to understand, practical way for everyday living. And this is what I love to do on my podcast, How Do You Keep Well? I love sharing stories, scientific insight, and strategies for healthy living. So when we talk about our brain health, I want to explore it from the angle of our cognitive reserve and how we can maintain this cognitive reserve as far out as possible in our health span and our lifespan. And we can do this through what we eat and how we live life. Of course, when we talk about lifestyle factors that affect our brain and our general well being, we're thinking of a number of different factors. We're thinking of exercise, and this would include physical and mental exercise. The body brain connection is such an interesting topic. And one of the first articles I actually wrote when I first started out was the impact sitting down for long periods of time had on our brain health. I'll put a link in the show notes if you wish to read this. But also remember that our brain receives sensory input from all parts of our body, in particular our vision and hearing. So hearing loss is one of the risk factors for dementia. So yes, if you can't hear well, you do need to go and get help for it rather than telling people off for shouting at you. So we were talking about lifestyle factors. We've talked about exercise, resting. I've done a previous podcast episode on sleep. Also, remaining social connected. Again, I've done another episode on that, reducing the impact of stress. But today's topic, I'm just focusing on food for thought. Food for thoughts, really, what is there a superfood we can actually eat that would help to maintain our brain's capacity to think, to learn, to memorize things, and to fight this brain fog? Brain fog is becoming like an epidemic. It's incredible. It's affecting the lives of women in their 40s and in their 50s. It's making women doubt themselves in the capacity that they have been placed to have an impact on the world. So my question, is there a best diet for the brain? Is there actually a best supplement? I mean, I have bought one in the past and I'm not too sure if it made any difference. Is it possible to eat to refuel our brain? And is fish good for our brain? Those are the kind of questions I had on my mind. And my aim is to encourage us all to think about how we can proactively protect our delicate memory cells to make them more resilient and retentive as we approach midlife. So, 3 questions for this episode. Number 1 question is, what is the biggest source of energy to the brain? Do you know the answer? Okay, hang on. Are there any other sources of nutrition to the brain that helps to maintain its structure and function? And are there things we can eat to reduce inflammation in the brain? Now, the answers to these 3 questions forms the basis of my conversation today. The bottom line is, as we all grow older, our bodies are bound to change. Our brain is going to change. So we need to take steps to live better and longer. But also, we need to keep our brain healthy and strong. We need to be able to gain new memory cells, recall important details, and keep maintaining and making an impact in our world. So, first of all, let's look at our brain health with a focus on the memory. So, we know the brain cells kind of sorts and saves and sheds information at a rate faster than we can imagine. And our body senses, our eyes, our sense of feeling, our taste, our touch, our sight, our hearing, all of this bring information to the brain for interpreting. And the complex pathway of nerves communicating with each other helps us to make sense of this information in a meaningful way. Now, the brain is so rich in nerve cells. It is the most energy demanding organ in the body, and it uses about half of all the sugar energy in the body. So, brain functions such as thinking, memory, learning are all closely linked to glucose levels and how efficiently the brain uses this fuel source. If there isn't enough glucose in the brain, for example, neurotransmitters, the brain's chemical messengers, are not produced. And when these neurotransmitters are not produced, then the nerves cannot communicate with each other. Low glucose levels in the blood can cause a loss of energy for brain function. And we've seen people who have hypoglycemia faint, go dizzy. Of course, you can't have good attention when your energy levels are low. Your brain cannot function. And this is very important, especially in women who maybe go on a fasting diet. And it's really important to be able to balance and know what works for your body at this point in time and what doesn't work well for you. So also, let's look at the other side of the coin. High blood glucose levels can affect the brain's functional connectivity. It can cause the brain to shrink, literally shrink. It can cause like small vessel disease. It can restrict blood flow to the brain because the sugar is clogging up all the blood vessels. And this will cause a lot of difficulties with learning, with memory, with thinking. And sometimes this can actually trigger the development of what we call vascular dementia. So this is the reason we encourage people to eat food that allows a steady release of sugar into the system rather than the high sugar snacks, which causes a rapid fluctuation. Now, picture this. Imagine you have a car tire and it's deflating and you're inflating it up throughout the day. So it goes flat and then you push it up with air and then it goes flat. You push it up, you go flat. I mean, you will be tired when you keep pumping air into the tire. But also the fibers of the tire will become weak. And that is probably the easiest picture I can give you of the brain. The constant fluctuation of high levels of sugar, low levels of sugar can cause the brain to have a lot of wear and tear. So you know what? You can't get away with those bad food choices. As you approach midlife, it's the bad and unhealthy food choices causes the brain to age quicker. And it can affect how we think, how we learn, and how we memorize things. So be intentional about eating food that balances your blood sugar. So include things like sweet potatoes, lentils, grains, and fibers in your diet every day without fail. And one strategy I recommend here is to create maybe specific periods in your meal planning calendar where you upgrade your diet and include more superfood. So, for example, you could do weekly challenges and say to yourself, I'm going to eat maybe 3 or 4 naturally starchy foods at certain times of the day, or you can create other times in your diary depending on what you feel, how you feel your brain health is at that point in time. And one of the decisions I made recently was to eat a beans or lentil based meal at least 3 to 5 days of the week. To be honest, it was difficult because I was just kind of used to my regular kind of Nigerian diet. But I realized I had some fixed mindsets and some limiting beliefs around this. And so I had to deal with those mindsets, and I began to find that actually it works. And I've gotten better at sticking with this plan. I understand making a diet change can be a bit of a challenge, but it could well be one thing you are able to do to help reduce the risk of brain fog. But also, it can be a great tool for balancing your hormone as you approach the transitional phase. So I got to the second question. What are the other sources of nutrition to the brain? And how can we maintain the brain's structure and function? All right. I have a story I would like to say here, and it's about me and my mom and my siblings. When we were little, I don't know if you had this in your family as well, but we had to take all sorts of supplements. We were either taking cod liver oil or omega H3, and there was one particular tonic we called a reptile tonic. Oh my goodness, that thing was it was horrible, but we had to take it. There was a bottle always on the dining table, and we all had to take a swig from the bottle. But also, I mean, this particular aspect makes me feel very homesick sometimes. I mean, we ate lots of different types of fish when we were growing up, sardines, herring. There were all different types of fish variety growing up. And this is one of the things I miss about my Nigerian diet. But again, let's go back to the topic. Our brain is actually made up of 60% fats. 60% fats. Can you believe that? So consuming healthy fat is actually important for brain development and protection. So there are all sorts of different types of fats, but the one the brain needs is omega-3, polyunsaturated fats that the body can't make on its own. Now, since the brain can't make omega-3 on its own, it's important to source this from our diet. And fatty fish are one of the most common sources of omega-3. And this is the reason why fish is good for the brain. It is a rich source of omega-3 fatty acids. Increasing the intake of this reduces dementia risk by 50%. Omega-3 is also found in plant-based food like chia seeds and walnuts, and even in oils like extra virgin oil. Now, one diet we know that is rich in fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, fish, and olive oil, the Mediterranean style diet can actually slow brain aging as well. So there are 3 types of omega-3, and these all have some long names: ALA, DHA, and EPA. ALA is actually found in a number of plants and plant oil, like we mentioned earlier, chia seed, flax seeds. But the EPA and the DHA are mostly found in fatty fish like salmon, trout, anchovies. And the idea is that the body finds EPA, DHA readily available and usable compared to A. The general recommendation is that you eat at least 2 servings of fish every week. How many of us are doing this? Okay, be honest. You send me your message. Okay. And one of that has to be an oily fish meal. But because they have a higher source of omega-3, EPA and DHA, like I said earlier on, are readily used in our body and they help to maintain the brain cell and perform other important functions. So fish is beneficial for our brain health. If you haven't been eating fish, let this be a reminder for you to go up to the shops and get some oily fish for yourself. Today I went when after creating this podcast, I went up to the shops and I bought myself some anchovies as well. I haven't tried those for a long time. And I also bought myself some mussels as well. I'm looking forward to yumming that up. But why is fish beneficial to our brain health? Obviously, like I said, it's a rich source of omega 3, especially the DHA and the EPA. And these are the ones that are really important for our brain to grow and develop well. And they are important parts of the membrane and they're important for how the cells talk to each other in the brain. Omega 3 fatty acid also helps to protect the brain from degeneration, what we call neurodegeneration, but it also improves the brain plasticity. I've talked about neuroplasticity before, and definitely a number of studies that have shown that regular consumption of fish is associated with a lower risk of cognitive decline. And it's really useful in terms of helping the brain improve its plasticity as well. We've talked about the brain structure and function, and a number of research suggests that a diet rich in fish actually preserves the brain volume and structure. And it's just not fish. There are other types of food that maintains and preserves the brain volume and structure. Fish consumption has also been linked to better performance on tests, cognitive tests, and improved brain connectivity. Obviously, there's the reduced risk of stroke as well because omega 3 fatty acids in fish actually have anti-inflammatory and anti-blood clot properties, and it helps to reduce the risk of stroke by preventing blood clots and blood vessel damage. The fifth reason is because fish consumption also has a positive impact on our microbiome. And no doubt about it, this would help to reduce inflammation. So obviously, we've heard about the good sides of fish, but let's also remember that sometimes some types of fish contain mercury contamination, especially in the larger kind of predatory fishes. And it's important to be very cautious of this, especially in pregnant women and young children. So the question is, how can you, my listener, and me, how can we include more omega 3 into our diet? Personally, for me, I'm going to up my game. I'm going to start trying to eat oily fish twice a week. I don't think that's too much, to be honest. All right. I've already started using chia seeds, and I'm going to be using this a lot more for my kids as well. But also, I'm going to explore using flax seeds. If you have been doing this before, let me know. How do you get on with it? But if you want some more information about the top 12 foods that contain omega 3, I will put in a link. A very useful article that details this is on the Zoe website. I'll put the link below. And the idea really is that you want to start working on these ideas as soon as possible. The earlier you start, the better the chances of preventing or delaying wear and tear that comes with brain aging. In fact, a research done to analyze the eating habits and brain volumes of adults between the ages of 40 to 65 found that those who ate a healthy variety of food, including plenty of vegetables, fruits, grains, good oils, had more gray matter and larger brain volume than those whose diet included less of those food. So, dear listeners, let's start making changes now at whatever stage you are. It is better late than never. It all adds up for the future. So here are my own tips for including healthier fats into your diet. Try swapping. So for instance, rather than that big lump of steak, why don't you use fish instead? Swap your sugary drinks to water, You can make yourself some anti-inflammatory drinks. We can come to that later. Try to start small, make some small changes first, and then build on this. And thirdly, be intentional, be specific on what area you want to work on and focus on this. Now, this leads to the final food for thought for today. How can we use food to help us reduce the wear and tear that occurs naturally as we age or as a result of inflammation? So we know our body, including our brain, is exposed to low-grade inflammatory changes as a result of a number of different lifestyle and environmental factors. For example, I found that air pollution or being in an area of air or being exposed to air pollution for long periods of time can increase inflammation in the body. So there are things we can't control, but there's a lot more we can control. Obviously, with cognitive inflammation, this naturally happens with age, and it is a risk factor that can increase decline in cognitive function for people. And in particular, things like how we process words as well. So, really, like I said before, the idea is that I want you to keep yourself motivated and inspired and encouraged to do the right things with your lifestyle early on. So, we know food is our medicine, and it's crucial to use this to our advantage to live a happy, healthy life. So, knowing what the options are is the first step. But I know it can be quite confusing, to be honest. You don't know what the right choice is. There's so many options out there. Is it fasting or feasting? What do we do? All I would say is find what works for you. So, for example, if you're in a season of life and brain fog or issues with your memory or issues with your focus is a major concern for you, then you can start working on it. It may be like the red flag or a warning for you. So why don't you just work on it, specifically using your diet? There are simple everyday food that can help to fight inflammation in our diet. So you really don't need to pay out for so much money to buy supplements if you take a moment to plan ahead of time. So there are, I would say, some top foods that are easy to find and they do a great work of fighting inflammation in the body. So we've mentioned fish because they have omega-3, a number of berries, raspberries, strawberries. They have some special chemicals in them called flavonoids, and they are very good in helping to fight inflammation in the body. Nuts are very good as well, especially things like almond nuts, walnuts. The next one is grapes, the everyday grapes. Now, these have got resveratrol, and they're very good at being antioxidants in the body. Tomato, yes, Nigerians, we eat a lot of tomatoes, we eat a lot of leafy green vegetables, but pay attention to how you're cooking it as well. Leafy green vegetables are also good, that is very rich in a lot of chemicals that help to release antioxidants into the bloodstream. Spices like turmeric are very good as well. Extra virgin olive oil have polyphenols that prevent inflammation. Very similar to the way ibuprofen works. Cherries, oh, I love cherries. I mean, you can have your yogurt in the morning with cherries in them. That's awesome. And last but not the least, dark chocolates. I mean, keep them in your drawer at work when you need a quick snack. Obviously, there are different types of chocolates. Try to look for one with at least 70% of cocoa because they have flavonoids in them. And for you, my medical listeners, you might be familiar with the MIND diet. This is popularly known as the brain healthy diet. The MIND diet basically means the Mediterranean dash intervention for neurodegenerative delay, and is a diet that combines aspects of the Mediterranean diet and the DASH diet. And again, it focuses on foods like leafy greens, berries, nuts, whole grains, and olive oil. And all of this help to reduce inflammation and protect the brain against conditions like Alzheimer's disease. So the question is, what is the fastest way to ease inflammation in our body? Well, I'm sad to say that there is no single superfood that will work overnight. They only lower inflammation over time if you get to eat a variety of nutrient rich food every day. Personally, here are three ways I have managed to include food or superfood into my diet. I tend to drink my fruits and my vegetables. I make a lot of smoothies. And thanks to my friend, Dr. Easy, she's created some delicious smoothie recipes, which has really helped me get on top of my greens a lot better. And I tend to use a combination of kale, spinach, broccoli, green pepper for my green smoothie, and I add one fruit into it. There is another lady called Fayette on Instagram, and again, she creates some excellent drink recipes using blackberries and green tea. I hope to try this one day. The second way is I like experimenting with new foods, drinks, or spices. Recently, I started experimenting with tofu, and oh my goodness, that thing is yum. I enjoy frying it with my favorite spices, especially things like turmeric. Then you're getting the maximum benefit from food like that. Chickpea is another food I've recently experimented with, and honestly, there's hardly a week that goes by without me having this in my diet now. So experiment with new foods. Don't be stuck with your perhaps what you have always known as a child. Try to just experiment a little bit. Another thing I've done recently is to drink coffee. And I tend to maybe limit it to maybe two or three drinks in a week at the most. But coffee contains antioxidants, which are very beneficial to the body as well. And the third thing I have done is reduce my intake of processed foods significantly. I avoid eating too much pastries or pies or potato chips. I avoid buying them when I go to the shops. And I always keep healthier snacks at eye level in the fridge, especially for those moments when I need a quick snack. So here are my tips for you again. Remember, swap, start small, and be intentional. So my suggestions are try to add anti-inflammatory foods into your diet slowly. Swap snacks, processed snacks or with whole foods like fruits and nuts. I mean, things like dark chocolates are very good snacks and they are also good as antioxidants. Try to pick colorful fruits and veggies to get the most anti-inflammatory antioxidants. Try to opt for sparkling water instead of sugary drinks. And if you're going to use a supplement, check with your doctor if they are right for you. So as we complete this episode, I'm just going to share another story between myself and my daughter that happened on the morning of this podcast episode. I was taking her to school and we were having a conversation and she asked me, Mom, can you name any random 10 objects? I didn't know what she was going to do with it, so I just kind of rattled 10 things out. And she was able to recall these items in this specific order. And apparently, she had learned the technique of anchoring thoughts into her brain using imagery to help her immediate recall. Personally, I found it fascinating because here I was thinking about brain health and lifestyle factors and diet. And here is my daughter teaching me how to remember things. But also, it just reminded me that I'm on the right pathway. So I'm sure this is for someone out there. Okay. Again, remember, our brain health is important. Paying attention to maintaining and preserving its function through our lifestyle behaviors is really important. And we can maintain our brain health by looking at what we eat and upgrading it to a better one. We need to balance our sugar intake, increase healthier fats like omega 3 in our diet, and increase foods that fight inflammation. And here are three tips to use. Swap into something healthier. Start small and build your strength up with this. And then be intentional. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode once again. I'm always so grateful for the contacts you make with me. And in particular, I'm grateful for those who are sharing this podcast episodes. Thank you so much. I really appreciate what you're doing. Now, all I can say is have a wonderful month for the rest of June. And we keep on keeping on and keep on keeping well. Well, you take good care. And my next episode, I am looking forward to it. I have interviewed one of my colleagues, and she actually shares some of her own practical insights into diet. But we'll see how it goes. All right. Thank you and bye.